The room went quiet the second the shot rang out. A sound so sharp, so raw, it cut through the crowd and seemed to stop time itself. A single dad veteran, standing tall with a rifle that carried decades of history in its steel frame, had just pulled the trigger. And what followed left the CEO, the Marines, and everyone else frozen in total silence. But let's step back. Because this wasn't just about a gun, or even about the man holding it, it was about the scars, the battles fought both on foreign soil and within a father's heart. His name was Daniel, a Marine veteran who had given his best years to serve his country. He returned home with medals, yes, but also with empty pockets and heavier burdens than anyone could see. His wife had passed away when his daughter was just 2 years old, and since then, every day had been a fight. A fight to raise her alone, to keep food on the table, to balance shifts at the mechanic shop with bedtime stories that kept her from feeling the hole her mother had left behind. Daniel's life was one of quiet resilience. He never asked for help, never complained. But when the local Marine base announced a special fundraising event to restore a historical museum, an event hosted by a billionaire CEO who wanted to showcase patriotism more as a brand than a belief, Daniel felt torn. His daughter had begged him to go, excited about the chance to see real heroes and maybe even touch something that came from history. He didn't want to show up. He didn't want to stand next to men in suits who never knew what it meant to bleed for freedom. But for her, he swallowed his pride. The event was grand, lined with banners, polished speeches, and a stage full of high-ranking officers and businessmen. In the center of it all stood a relic, an original World War II rifle, polished but still bearing the marks of war. The CEO held it like it was a prop, smiling for cameras, talking about heritage and honor, without a tremor in his voice. Daniel's daughter clutched his hand, her eyes wide. "Daddy, that's the kind of rifle your grandpa used, right?" she whispered. Daniel nodded, but his chest felt tight. His grandfather had indeed carried one of those through Europe, and Daniel had grown up hearing stories that shaped him into the man he became. That rifle wasn't a prop. It was a symbol of sacrifice. Then came the moment. The CEO, perhaps trying to show off, challenged anyone in the audience to step forward and prove they could fire the rifle with precision. The crowd laughed, no one daring to move. It wasn't just about firing, it was about showing control, courage, and skill. Daniel's daughter tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, you can do it. Show them." Her voice, soft yet determined, pierced him. He shook his head at first. The last thing he wanted was to stand in front of that crowd. But when she whispered again, "For Grandpa, for you," he felt something stir. Daniel stepped forward. Murmurs swept the crowd. The CEO's smirk faltered. A Marine general straightened, recognizing him instantly as a man who had served with honor. Daniel picked up the rifle with reverence, not as a toy, not as a showpiece, but as if he were holding the memory of every man who had fallen before him. He breathed deep, steadying himself the way he had done 1,000 times in combat. The silence was thick. Then, crack, the shot split the air, echoing through the hall. The target, far at the end of the range, bore a single clean hole dead center. Silence followed. The CEO's jaw went slack. Marines who had seen combat themselves stared in awe. And Daniel didn't gloat, didn't bow. He simply lowered the rifle gently, almost like laying a fallen brother to rest. "This isn't for show," he said, his voice rough but steady. "This weapon, this history, is about the men who carried it, men who never came home. It's about honor. And it's about the families who still carry the weight every single day." His eyes flicked to his daughter, who beamed with pride, tears glistening in her eyes. The room stayed frozen in silence. For once, even the billionaire CEO had nothing to say. A Marine general slowly began to clap. One by one, others followed, until the entire hall thundered with applause. Not for wealth, not for power, but for a single dad veteran who had reminded them what sacrifice really meant. Afterward, the CEO approached Daniel privately. Humbled, he admitted that the event had been more about image than true respect. But in that moment, he promised to redirect funds not just to the museum, but also to programs that supported veterans and their families, programs Daniel himself had once needed but never received. It wasn't charity. It was recognition. That night, as Daniel tucked his daughter into bed, she wrapped her little arms around his neck and whispered, "Daddy, you're my hero." He smiled through tears he didn't try to hide. For all the battles he had fought, for all the losses he had endured, this was the victory that mattered most. And for everyone who witnessed that moment, whether in the hall or later through the story that spread, it wasn't about the rifle anymore. It was about respect, legacy, and the reminder that sometimes, the quiet strength of one man can silence even the loudest in the room. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder of true courage, and subscribe for more inspiring stories that celebrate resilience, honor, and the power of love that never gives up.